Hello there, and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Kokomlemle on digital address GA 0992539. Our top stories this hour. Ghana has added 10.7 billion Ghana cedis to its public debt stock in just 4 months. And that's from July 2020 to November 2020. Government has generally subjected the persistent increment to the COVID-19, attributed, I should say, to the COVID-19 pandemic. Also coming up, opposition NDC says the Electoral Commission does not have what it takes to declare results of the 2020 December polls after 24 hours. We have more and details as the party asks it will set up a citizen arrest task force to collaborate with what they call genuine security operatives to arrest persons who misbehave on election day. Also coming up, we'll hit the campaign trail. We'll tell you what President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has been doing, and we'll talk to you about what former President John Dramani Mahama is doing as well. The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, affordable, safe sanitation. Do join us and tell your friends to join us on DSTV 421, GoTV 144. Remember, we're streaming live on YouTube and also on our other social media platforms, especially Facebook. I am Gifty Ando-Apia. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. You're welcome to the show. I'll take you through the details now. Ghana has added 10.7 billion Ghana cedis to its public debt stock in just 4 months. And the details, July 2020 to November 2020, that's this month. Government is generally attributing the persistent increment to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, our total debt stock has seen a sharp surge within a span of 11 months or so, from 204.6 billion cedis in January 2020 to a whopping 273 billion cedis in November 2020. So how did we accumulate the debt? There's more in this report.
Before the COVID-19 pandemic, Ghana's total public debt stock stood at 204.6 billion Ghana cedis. By March ending, the country's debt stock had increased by 31.5 billion Ghana cedis. Between January 2020 and July 2020, Ghana's debt shot up by 28.5%, pegging the country's debt stock at 263 billion Ghana cedis in July. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund had expressed worry about the nation's rising debt levels, saying it poses challenges to the fiscal economy. What this means is that if the debt levels are not checked, it will get to a stage where the nation might struggle to settle interest payments, particularly when the cedi begins losing grounds against the US dollar. In that case, you will need more dollars to settle the loans. Ratings agencies Fitch and Standard & Poor's have also expressed similar concerns, warning it could affect the nation's credit ratings. Well, Ghana is expected to pay about 24 billion Ghana cedis on interest payments for this year alone. This will be a little over 4 billion Ghana cedis, what was settled in 2019. Last year, interest payment cost the nation about 19.756 billion Ghana cedis on loans. Already, the IMF is forecasting the country is likely to hit 74% debt to GDP ratio in 2021, given the current 71% debt to GDP ratio as of November 2020.
Joining me via Zoom, Peter Quarte. He's a professor at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research and joins us for more. Hello, Prof. Thank you very much for your time. Good afternoon. Now, the IMF has cautioned government about the nation's rising debt levels even before COVID. What measures do you think that government put in place to reduce the borrowing rate even before the pandemic? Because most of the time we've been told or we've been referred to the pandemic as the cause of our rising debt stock.
Yeah, good afternoon to your discerning viewers, and thanks for inviting me. Certainly, before the pandemic, if you notice, our debt GDP ratio was below 60%. There have been quite a few policies that government put in place. There was debt restructuring, where some of the high-dated or expensive debts were redeemed for cheaper debt and many others, because the debt is comprised of the stock as well as the interest payment. So that really worked. And also, we borrow to finance investment, so we grow. So as our GDP kept growing, our debt GDP ratio kept coming down or was at a level that was acceptable. It is unfortunate that we are currently at where we are, but we are not in that situation alone. You will find UK, US, South Africa, and many others, Mozambique, many other countries with very high debt GDP ratios. We are at a risk of debt distress, but we haven't reached the distress stage where we are unable to service our debts. But for me, the key point is how did we use the funds? I think we need to be more focused about how the monies were used. If we hadn't used them, we hadn't borrowed to use them or invest or spend on such items, would it have been appropriate? I think that should also be the focus of our discussion.
And so I want to come to that before I even move to my question, which feeds into the debt distress that you talked about. From where you sit, in terms of what we have used for this, the loans that we've taken, how, do you think we've used it in the right way? Because most of the time we're using it to actually service other debt.
Well, certainly, to a large extent, I would say yes. Certainly, we need to service previous debts. You can't say I won't pay. You certainly have to service previous debts. But also, some were even used to ensure the financial sector cleanup, the bailout that we saw. About 21 billion was spent to clean up the financial system. If we hadn't done that, the government hadn't done that, you can imagine the number of people who would have lost their lives, the number of people who would have been ill, still terminally ill, and the repercussions on the economy. Because if you affect one person, that can translate into other livelihoods as well. So that aside, we saw the coronavirus pandemic and all the devastating effects. There's the need for intervention, and we saw free electricity, water. Of course, these are temporary measures. I don't expect government to continue to do this going into 2021. These are temporary measures that we should gradually ease off some of these freebies and then ensure that we spend money on capital expenditure. Our roads need to be fixed. Our hospitals would have to be fixed, and many other things.
Yeah. Fair as it may sound there, let's take a look at the servicing of debts that we have had to do. Now, Ghana is expected to pay about $24 billion, 24 billion cedis on interest payment for this year alone. And that will be, that we're looking at a little over $4 million. Hello, Prof.
Yeah,
can you hear me?
The interest payments has severe repercussions on our ability to spend. It reduces our fiscal space to be able to invest in capital expenditure. If you even review the budget statement that was submitted by the Minister of Finance for the first quarter of 2021, you realize that about 25% of that request will go into debt servicing. And that is quite huge, that's significant. Once you pay salaries and other compensation and also statutory payments, we are left with only close to 7% for capital expenditure. When in ideal situations, we need to be spending between 15 to 20% of our monies or investing in capital expenditure, we are only doing 7%. So that cost is a cause for concern. But of course, we find ourselves in the pandemic era, and I am hoping moving forward, we'll gradually move away from some of this social spending and then divert funds into capital expenditure.
Again, on the same issue of servicing debts, last year alone, interest payment cost the nation about 19.756 billion cedis alone. So are we not better off, avoiding piling the debt stock, because this money obviously could have been used for other social interventions which would be beneficial?
That's the ideal situation. I mean, we have what we term the pecking order hypothesis, where people prefer own funds, internal funds. When you exhaust that option, then you move into loans and other things. But unfortunately, our domestic revenue mobilization has not been sufficient. Our tax revenue as a proportion of GDP is about 15%, way below the African average of 18 to 20%. So it tells you there's a gap that has to be filled. If we are not raising enough money domestically, it means we have to find means of financing the gap. That is why government resort to borrowing. We could have avoided these interest payments. Unfortunately, we don't have the resources. We are a developing country. Even the advanced countries borrow anyway. So the best option would be to borrow, but borrow responsibly. Borrow and invest as much as possible so that you'll be able to recoup returns. It will yield the needed returns, we create jobs, and then we'll be able to service our loans. But if we borrow to consume, that will be a recipe for disaster for us.
Will it be fair enough to say that the country is likely to experience the 74% debt to GDP ratio by the IMF in 2021? That's 2021, given the current 71% debt to GDP ratio as of November this year?
That will depend. I mean, the explanation or the intuition given was that the bonds that are going to be raised, part of it will be used to redeem old debts. And if we, of course, we're able to grow our economy better, then we may be inching towards the 74, but we might not get there. So it depends basically on how much we borrow come 2021 or from now to 2021 and how much we're able to grow the economy. If we're able to grow the economy at a faster rate, granted that now we are opening up quite rapidly, and then granted that we're able to manage the spread of the virus, then our GDP will grow. So our debt GDP might not hit 74%, but I don't expect anything below 70%.
Let me finally ask what your thoughts are as far as the effect on the country's currency and the economy in general would be going forward.
Well, the currency has been quite stable, and I think we must commend government and the monetary authorities especially. The challenge is more of a fiscal issue than the monetary sector. Okay. So if we are able to manage our deficit very well, then we might not experience any severe repercussions on our exchange rate. So far, the CD has remained relatively stable. But if our deficit go beyond the expected, that might create problems. That might create unnecessary risk to our economy. And then there might be some capital flights after the elections if we don't manage some of the macro indicators. If that happens, then certainly it will have repercussions on the exchange rate. But if we're able to spend reasonably and manage the deficit, then that situation might not arise. Our exchange rate will continue to remain stable.
Hopefully, we'll get there. Prof, thank you very much for your time. Professor Peter Quartey, there is a professor at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research. They're helping us understand our debt stock, what we've done, what we can do going forward. But let me tell you about security. With 120 hotspots, police in the Bono East region say violent crimes have drastically reduced and campaigns have been largely peaceful. But for some of the residents, coming across a dead body, for example, in marketplaces, is not uncommon. Well, like all the other regions that we have visited, residents here complain about arms in wrong hands which people are using, and they say police must consolidate the relative peace they have enjoyed so far and boost their presence on the ground. Today in our series, Safety for My Vote, Anas Sabit reports from the Bono East region.
Today, we are in Techiman on the principal streets to engage residents on some of the topmost security concerns ahead of the December elections and getting to the end of the year.
We usually have security issues during elections, so we need to strengthen our security to save the situation.
Armed robbers and
thieves are all over the market. Sometimes you find dead bodies in the market too.
security issues. For
us here in Techiman, armed robbery, especially on the route, is on the rise. From the streets, we sought to find the current security situation from the Ghana Police Service. DCOP Asumadu Ochri Dakun is the acting Bono East Regional Commander.
The current security situation in the Bono East region is a mixed one, because we have a situation where, on one hand, other crimes like kidnappings and murders, and then the numerous chieftaincy clashes have gone down. Robberies are not going the way we want it to be. Yes.
On political violence, DCOP Ochri Dakun tells me that though the region is relatively peaceful, the police has been able to identify over 120 flashpoints across the 11 constituencies of the region.
I think I can say that we have had a very peaceful campaign period in all the constituencies. We haven't actually received any complaint that Party A was having a rally and then they have clashed with Party B people. The flashpoints, the numbers keep changing, yes, but I can tell you we have around about 120 in all.
These poor people on the grounds do happy with the improved security situation of the region. They're however calling on the police to up their game ahead of the December elections.
There
is improvement in the security situation during elections, but the police needs to be improved. We have to tighten our security so they will be able to deal with any situation. Others, including this gentleman, popularly known as La Soup, is however confident that the security is up to the task and the election will be generally peaceful. Ghanaians are united and I believe there won't be violence this time round. Our security is very tight too, so I have no doubt the election will be generally peaceful. For the few badness who are aiming at perpetuating violence on the election day, the police has a message for you.
Stay away from troublemaking, because police will be there. Police, we are determined, we are committed, we are ready, and we are going to be very robust on that day.
So this has been the concerns of the people here in Techiman. From the Bono East Regional Capital here in Techiman, my name is Anas Sabit for JoyNews.
Well, we've also been talking to the regional minister for the Bono East area, who has told us that certain measures are being put in place to ensure there is security and that it is boosted as we go towards the election. We'll bring you that in JoyNews Prime later. And on the election headquarters here, the NDC in the Wale in the Northeast region says the people of the constituency are woefully disappointed about that nothing significant has been done under the NPP administration in spite of the vice president's roots in the area. The party says the, quote, Baumia factor, which the NPP used in 2016, did not work for the people of Mamprugu, even though they voted for their own brother, and that has been exposed. According to the NDC, the people of Wale in the region have not benefited, even though they voted massively for the party in 2016. Supporters of the party have been speaking ahead of the arrival of John Mahama, who is the flag bearer of the NDC in the region.
visit to me for the development of the area is welcome into the development arena to do whatever you have to do to develop this country. So the Bawumia factor, in my opinion, has been isolated from the aspirations of the people because the people are not getting what they desire. And I believe that that particular factor is already dead on arrival as far as 2020 election.
Looking at the Bawumia factor, previously it worked, but as at what happened within the 4 years, they have realized that it's not only your biological brother that can be of good help to you. A good friend can be of good help to you. Because regarding what His Excellency John Dramani Mahama did in the last 4 years in the Walwale constituency, Bawumia has not even done even a spoonful. And because of that, they are judging what His Excellency John Dramani Mahama did in the 4 years as compared to what Bawumia did, which we cannot even see anything to his credit. And that is why they are saying that no, this year we are going to vote His Excellency John Dramani Mahama to continue with his good way and to send his our brother Honorable Abdullah Abubakari to Parliament.
The people of Walwale constituency have learned bigger lessons. Elections is not about blood relationship, it's about who can bring development to the people. And NDC has shown commitment. NDC has demonstrated that it can actually develop the entire Walwale community.
We have borrowed about over 150 billion, and within this our constituency we have not even inherited anything of the food. Even the senior minister have indicated that he has put up 3 factories in his region, and within Bawumia cannot even show 1 factory that he have even put within this our constituency, neither to talk of the region, indicating that the government have failed. Talk of the free SHS, within our we have about 3,800 plus that were even registered under free SHS. Not even up to 100 plus have even passed. So the free SHS we have even failed massively. So there's no even need for us to follow the Bawumia factor. Bawumia have failed us willfully, and we are voting for John Dramani Mahama and Honorable Abuwa.
Maxwell Agbagba, who is following the NDC's flag bearer. Hello, Maxwell. Right, Maxwell, I do hear you now. Do tell us what's been happening on the campaign trail today.
Yeah. Hello, Gipsy, come again.
I do hear you. Tell us what's been happening on the campaign trail today.
Okay, we're just returning from our first stop today in the northeast region. Specifically, we are in the community of Logri in the Kubori constituency, where the NDC presidential candidate has been at party supporters and presidents who gathered to hear him speak. He first of all paid a courtesy call on some of the traditional authorities in the community. He had some brief interactions with them before he addressed the rest. He has talking about a lot of things. He said that it was the NDC that ensured that the community of Logri became habitable. He says in former President Rawlings' time, the area was so habitable because there was Uncle Psychiatrist and other things, that made it very harsh terrain for people to actually live. But the ex-president actually made sure that he sent, a team here to come and pray and make sure that the community, is he has also been talking about the roads in this community. He says that the roads are in a terrible state, and what if the NDC is elected into power, they will make sure that they fix the situation here in this community. He has also been reiterated some of the points that he made in other regions like the Ashanti region and then the Upper East region. He has made those promises repeatedly everywhere we go, especially regarding the free senior high school policy. Here also in this constituency, he mentioned that if the NDC is elected into power, the NDC would make sure that they improve upon the free senior high school policy, and within 1 year they would abolish the double track system. He says that the double track system defeats the purpose of the free senior high school policy, and they will make sure they do that. He has also been talking about the mining sector reforms that he mentioned in other regions that we've been to, the Ashanti region and then the Upper East region. He said that if the NDC is elected into power, as part of the mining sector reform, they'll put in place mechanisms that would make it possible for people to mine in a sustainable manner. The other talk about giving back seized excavators and concessions back to their owners. He repeated, saying he had much to the admiration and to the applause, of the crowd here. But yesterday, the campaign ended really very late. On Tuesday evening, the former president actually left his hotel at 10:30 a.m., came back at 5:30 a.m. Wednesday morning, and then set off again this morning to the Northeast region. It's just a one-day tour here in the Northeast region. We are told that after the Northeast region today, we'll start another tour we'll be starting another one, in Tamale, where he'll be visiting other constituencies, as well.
That must be tiring indeed, Maxwell, but we appreciate that you bring us up to speed on some of the activities. As you speak, I'm sure you're still on your way.
Exactly. You're still on the road, yeah.
Exactly. On the road to where right now?
We're on the way to another constituency. We've not been officially told, but we've been informed that we're going to another constituency because there'll be a lot of stuff on the way. So we really cannot tell at this point where we are headed. But we know we're heading to another constituency.
Maxwell will come to you with more as you go along. Thank you. Maxwell Agbaba there. He's embedded with the NDC's team, which has been led, of course, by the flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama. The NDC parliamentary candidate for the Navrongo Central constituency of the Upper East region, Samson Tangombu Chiragea, says he's poised for victory in the December polls, while admitting that he does not underestimate his main contender from the NPP. Chiragea believes that he is better placed to represent the people of Navrongo Central in Parliament because of, according to him, his long years of service to the people and also the fact that he says he has a better political record. Correspondent Albert Sori spoke to him.
Samson Tangombu Chiragea is a 54-year-old tax auditor and administrator. He is an old student of the Navrongo Senior High School as well as the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology.
I read physics for my first degree. I went to Jimpa 99. I did a course in project planning and management. Then did my master's in finance, MBA in finance. Then qualified as a chartered accountant, ACCA 2016. I became a member of the ACCA 2018. Like I went to UK, I did international tax and transfer pricing.
But for him, it is not just his colorful educational background that makes him suitable for the job of Member of Parliament for Navrongo Central. Rather, he believes it is his rich experience in local politics and his understanding of the needs of the people of Navrongo that will give him the edge ahead of his political opponents.
When I started as a youth organizer, then looking at the queue, because I was there at the time, and then myself, and then became a regional youth organizer, I actually believe that one day I should also contribute to my quota because I started and I know the problems of the people. So why don't you one day try to become a leader and see how best you can help develop the area? And that even made me to contest the primaries 2011 against Makuyongo. At the time he was a regional minister. At the time, imagine a young man at the time around the 40s or trying to contest the regional minister primaries, where I even got 40%.
So, what are his plans for the Navrongo Central constituency if given the nod to become the Member of Parliament?
Because where we are getting to, it is not only through the pen that we should live. People should learn other things. The Navrongo is fast developing. You are looking for a plumber, it will take you 2 days to get a plumber. People are not still aware of such areas. Electricians, wiring of a house, plumbing work, and others. I think we need to encourage people to go into those sectors so that they can get from their livelihood. Yes. Then the education project. Our president, our flag bearer, started a farmer service center. We should be able to give farmers small-scale loan assistance and all that. Whether I come, I will encourage, I'll make sure that we try to, with my president there, we should be able to complete that structure. It's there, we started. But because we lost power, we lost all. They did not continue, so when we come, we'll build it. We don't have medical doctors here, even though we are one of the oldest hospitals. Formerly, we used to have medical doctors here. We have the research center here, but the hospital, the war memorial, is a mess. We don't have. The two doctors who come and go, it's a serious matter here. Mostly, we have to run to Tamale or other private hospitals for health services. And this is just very simple. Some of us would know what to do. Probably, I think, not that they don't want to work, but we need to give them an extra mile by giving them some few incentives that will encourage medical doctors to stay here.
Joy News has also been speaking with some of Samson Tangombu Chiragia's supporters in Navrongo to find out why he will be their choice.
At first, they used to say it's only if you are not able to go to school that you go to learn your handwork. But now we want to prove them wrong. So the NDC people are trying to help us build that bridge. So that's why we want to vote them into power to help us.
And I'm voting for John Mama and Samson Tangombu. The reason is that when John Mama was in power, the young guys, they were getting jobs and things were going normal for them. But this current administration, things are not going well.
I've changed my mind. I'm voting for NDC so that the tellers we are going forward. So the tellers we will have our place where we will sit and we will take care of our family.
Samson Tangombu Chiragia's main opponent in this election is Tangoba Abayage, the current Upper East Regional Minister and parliamentary candidate for the New Patriotic Party. So, what does Mr. Chiragia think about this opponent?
I've been a regional youth organizer. She's never been. I've campaigned for the parliamentary candidate for so many 10 years. She has never done that. I've been a constituency youth organizer. And she just came from this as the regional minister and she's contesting me. So as for that one, yeah, she's new. But the Vrongo wise, I'm very old and I'm somebody everybody knows. Because she's a regional minister and she controls all the districts, and then because of that, then he's awarding contracts here and there. He has money. I know we are giving her a very big margin, even though she's trying to buy. She's giving money here and there, motorbikes, tailors, and everything. I'm thinking that the Vrongo is above that.
Samson Tangombu Chiragia says he is very confident of winning the Navrongo Central Parliamentary election come December 7. Stay tuned to Joy News as we bring you another exclusive with Tangoba Abayage, the MPP's parliamentary candidate for Navrongo Central, in subsequent bulletins. Albert Sori, Joy News, Navrongo.
Now, President Akufo-Addo says it is shocking that former President Mahama is laying claim to the implementation of the free senior high school program. The former president at a rally in the Upper West region said he started the program with the construction of the E-blocks. But President Akufo-Addo, in an interaction with traders at Malam, Odoko and Agboboloshi markets, described Mr. Mahama's assertion as outright lies and deceit meant to revive his uninspiring, according to the president's campaign. The president is currently on a 2-day tour of the regional capital.
Free SHS Babado. Okasa me dada Ghana for some guy. 70 per vote in America, sir. Nakra About the 20 years as a Ghana for the air. And say, also 2 billion CDs are not offering to school fees. Or the baby be papa. And then, also no the free SHS no buy. Hey! Now, and yet fair. So my penny dada, because all they are trolling dada and they're about to free you. I can say no. You better not crying. You better not crying. Now, Santroy, if you are there back home. On one who said the campaign and call baby. He is seeing that his campaign is collapsing in confusion and fabrications and now outright lies. So I'm looking for a massive endorsement for the people of Ghana for that blueprint, which is set out in our manifesto of 2020. Jafide, Mesramo, me penu bubo, me penu bomb.
President Akufo-Addo there. Well, Elton Brobe is our man on that team. Elton is joining me on phone. Hello, Elton. Well, we'll get through to Elton, but earlier the president was in Dansoman, where he later moved to meet the traders at Malam. Where is the president now? What has he been saying? Elton has that information for us. Elton?
Yes, Gifty, I can hear you.
Please go ahead. Where is the president now? What has he been saying?
So we are just about leaving the Drummond market. It's drizzling, but everybody is here. Everybody is defiled the rains, and President Akufo-Addo is currently about finishing up pressing them, and then we'll move to the Ahmadiyya Park at Aboba. And since morning, the message from the president, just like when this was started yesterday, especially the same. The need for them to retain the MPP in power, and then the need for them to first assess what he's done, the promises he made in 2016, whether he's delivered on them, and if he has delivered on them, then the need for the electorate to give him 4 more years to do more, because what he's been telling them is that the 4 years that he's been in power, he's used that to lay a solid foundation. He's been able to deliver on almost all the promises he made in 2016. Another 4 more years will see the country develop steadily. But at the start of the tour was a program to honor the memory of the first member of parliament for Ablekuma West, the late Teresa Amele Tego, who was the first women organizer of the MPP. A statue has been erected in her honor on the famous Dansoman roundabout. And for the people within that enclave, the recognition will inspire them to go out and campaign for the re-election of the president and the MPP. But more instructively was the president's statement when he drove through the Mala market, the Odoko market, and Aboblosi, where he took on the former president for suggesting that he started the implementation of the free SHS program with the construction of the E-block. And that for President Akufo-Addo, that piece of news came to him as a shock because the NDC's position on the matter has been inconsistent from day one. And for the president to assume that he sort of started the program clearly could be described as lies, and to say in an attempt to rejuvenate his uninspiring campaign. So it is just the last lap. We are on the home stretch. Everything that takes must be thrown in. That's the sense I get. And from now to December 7th, likely these are some of the comments that we are likely to hear from the leading candidates for this election.
Well, Elton, where else is he expected to head?
So the program all of us are looking forward to is the last on the program for today. That is a meeting between him, religious leaders, and identifiable groups. What I've taken is that it is for the president to assure these groups, apart from the religious leaders, we are unclear as to the groups that constitute the identifiable groups. And it's for the president to assure them of his commitment to ensure that the election will pass off peacefully without any hate, and that all opinions will be respected. That will be the last on the lap for today around 8 p.m. today, and then we'll move to the central region tomorrow morning for the next 3 days. My information is that because they consider the central as a swing region, they want to devote more resources to it and ensure that they are able to get them to vote for the MP, more especially when the running base of the NDC is from the central region. So 3 days in the central region, a day in the western region, 3 days in the central region, back to the Greater Accra for another 2 days before he wraps up the Akufo-Addo 2020 electioneering campaign.
That's a very hectic routine. And for you, the journalist on the campaign trail, I can only imagine. Elton, thank you. And we'll get back to you as and when we should. Elton Brobe is our presidential affairs correspondent. He's been following the president who is on the last lurch, if you like, of the campaign. Well, as we've been saying, it's 12 days now to the elections, and we'll be reporting on this. Now, the political parties are out and about on their final lap campaigns to win the heart of you, the voter, by all means. With this campaign, will these campaigns make any difference at all? This final lap, will it make any difference in the decision that you make? Let's have a conversation on this. I have joining me via Zoom political communications analyst Dr. Eche Sekanko. Doc, it's been a while. How are you?
Yes, it's been a while actually. I'm doing very well by His grace. How have you been?
I'm not bad at all, we thank God. So I want to just start with the question I asked before I brought you in, that the final lap, does it make any difference? Or would you say at this point, people have decided on what they want to, who they want to vote for?
I think it does make a difference. The fact of the matter is that there are people who probably have decided or made their decisions as to who they want to vote for in an election, probably months before the election. There are some who are loyal supporters of the political parties, and so their affiliation does not change no matter what. But the thing is that there is a group of undecided voters, and also there are certain categories of voters who do not make their final decisions until, let's say, a week or two before the before the elections are cast. These are the people we call the late deciders, right? So, yes, it will answer your question. It does matter for the final lap of the campaign because there might be that 5%, sometimes 10%, or there might, because we are talking qualitative, even if we forget about the numbers, there might be a certain group, who and listen, because of my political analysis, sometimes I go out there and I try to talk to people. Last week I was in Duaya in Kwanta. I was there for work reasons and other personal reasons, but I took the opportunity to talk to people on the ground. And quite a number of people are ambivalent about this election. It is either they're not going to vote or they do not know who to vote for. I'm telling you. So these last few weeks are critical for these late deciders or these late voters.
Critical, you say. Well, we can imagine how the strength and whatever it is that they've put in, you can imagine. When you listen to our correspondent, Elton Broby, 3 days here, 3 days there, they're moving from the Greater Accra region to Ashanti region to Western and then to Central. That's pretty hectic. What typically goes into the messaging, the political messaging at this point?
Good question. I think at this point, the message that they want to the message that they want to send out is what we call the closing argument in political communication. So that's your closing argument. The closing argument is, what is your argument, or what is your raison d'etre, your reason?
So like, what's the crust? What's the crust of the message so far?
Exactly. Thank you very much. What is the main reason why people should vote for you? In Trido saying, so you have to go out. I think in the last week, that's what people are doing. If you want to summarize your mission statement, your vision for the country, how do you summarize that in a sentence or two, or in a very simple poster, or very simple WhatsApp message, or in a very simple billboard, or in a very simple speech, or in a very simple video, or in a very simple Facebook post? And we should be monitoring the Facebook post or some of either the influencers or the social media communicators or the party communicators. You would have a sense. You normally would get a sense as to what the closing argument is, or what their argument for voters to vote for them would be. And so when you go out there, you listen. I mean, you played a couple of clips with Nanadu and John Mahama, and you get a sense. If you try to do the speech analysis, you get a sense of what that closing argument is. The closing argument answers what we call the question of the election. And so for Nanado, his closing argument is that, hey, you've tried John Mahama, now you've tried me as well, and you've seen the difference. And for him, he says that his government is better than John Mahama in terms of competence. They are still going with that competence argument, and they're still going with the free education and free amenities.
Sorry to jump in there. If you ask me, I'll say that John Mahama seemed to be pushing the issue about corruption and how it was applied to him in his final lap, and saying that if you look at what was said of me, and if you look at what is happening right now of the current president, you say that he's more corrupt, while President Akufo-Addo seems to be pushing the free SHS, saying, I promised you, I have delivered. So you should look at me. I want you to comment on the final lap, the things that they've been saying, and whether you think that will change the minds of the undecided voters you talked about. Do you think?
Yeah, no, you're definitely right there in terms of what that closing argument is. You realize that in the last couple of weeks, the framing of the argument for JDM on the NDC side, and you got that right, was that you guys said we're corrupt. These guys are more corrupt than we are. So go come back for us, because you don't want to vote for them to come back to perpetuate all these corruption deals. And so that really is where he's going with. And in the parlance of Ghanaian politics, corruption is a big decider, is the big break. Honestly, anytime a party ends up being tagged or being successfully tagged with the corruption mantra, it means it's bad news for them. And they've tried to do that with the MPP. It hasn't really stuck, but I think it's beginning to stick in these final weeks, honestly, especially with the resignation of Martin Amidu, the Chapa deal. As far as the public framing of it is concerned, it is beginning to stick. Also, so there's probably some movement there. And then on the MPP, I think I already talked about their side, the free education, the amenities, the competence, and all of that before the comparison of records, before you had jumped in. So I think that's what it's going to be. Now your question is it going to convince the voters? That's always hard to say, but this is what I can say to that. Of course, and the reason why I think so is because, like I said, corruption is one of the big deciding factors okay, in this last week, we might want to do an article, what are the 9 or the 5 top issues that are going to decide the election? And if we did that, even if we said the top 3, corruption is going to be number 1. So, or it's going to be among the top 3, even if it's not number 1. It's going to be among the top 3. And I think for the MPP, education is definitely going to be a very big deal. Education and the provision of social amenities. So, yes, for people who are concerned about the stake of the corruption, they're going to definitely, it's going to make a difference for them. And the question they're going to ask is, free education, yes, but am I going to vote again to perpetuate corruption? And then on the other hand, for the MPP, people might say, well, they've had all these scandals, but at least they've been able to do something as big as free education and other things, management of COVID. So I might break for them. So I do think it will make a difference in these final years. In these final weeks after the election.
Yeah, actually, just a few days, 12 days, that is. But thank you so much, Dr. H.S. Ikanku there. He's a political communications analyst. The final lap, he says, the politicians are making their closing argument, and there is a group of undecided voters to be targeted. We'll see how that goes. It's just 12 days. This is still The Pulse with me, Gifty and Doppia. Let's do a very quick break. We'll be right back. Do stay with us. And there you saw it. All is set for that UDS Faculty of Education 2020 political parties debate on the education policy in Ghana. Now, 4 political parties are the governing New Patriotic Party, the National Democratic Congress, the biggest opposition, the Convention People's Party, and the People's National Congress will strip bare their manifesto policies on education. This debate is expected to help Ghanaians fully understand what the various parties have in stock ahead of the December polls as far as education is concerned. Our Northern Region correspondent Martina Bugri is joining me live. Hello, Martina. What is happening where you are? Martina, do you hear me? I see you, Martina. Do tell us what's happening right now. Okay, it looks like a little bit of a break in our conversation, so Martina can't seem to hear me. I'm going to try this once again, see if she hears me this time around so she can tell us what's happening there and what's to be expected. She also has a number of people on the bill that she'll be talking to before we return from Tamale right here back into the studio. Martina, let's try this once again. Hopefully you hear me now.
We are all set for this evening's program, where 4 political parties will shred their manifestos, policies on education. It is the UDS Faculty of Education political parties debate on education policy. We have 4 political parties who will be doing the debate this evening. But first of all, we'd like to find out what has gone into this whole debate. We have the organizers, and we'll be speaking to Dr. Gunu, the head of Faculty of Education. He'll give us more insight into what has been going into the preparation. Hi, Doc.
Yeah, hi.
Yes, tell us what went into this preparation, and we are all set for the show this night.
Yeah, we are well organized to host the 4 political parties, that is NDC, MPP, PNC, and CPP. So far, they have confirmed to participate in the process, and I can confirm that 3 of the political parties' reps have arrived. So the vice presidential candidate for CPP is in town. I can also confirm that the Deputy Minister of Education, Dr. Chum, is also in town. I can also confirm that the vice presidential candidate for PNC is also in town. So we are hoping that before the process is started, the NDC rep will also be in town, or signal that he's around to participate in the process.
What should we expect by the close of the whole debate?
Yeah, we expect political parties to indicate their citizenry on their policies on education. And it will also give us the opportunity to ask them questions that will make them to reflect on their manifesto promises. And I think that is very important because education is an important aspect of the entire developmental process. So this process, and that is the debate that I'm talking about, will support the political parties and the citizenry to make an informed choice.
Thank you very much, Dr. Guno of the Faculty of Education, UDS. He's been telling us what to expect tonight when the show begins. We have the 4 political parties. Actually, 3 of them are here, and they'll be telling us what to expect when their reps come tonight. Hi, Madam. Welcome to Joy News.
Thank you.
You represent the PNC.
Yes, please.
What should we expect when your leader mounts the podium to tell us about your policies?
I want to use this opportunity to thank UDS for organizing this debate, because when you look at education, it is the pivot upon which every country rests its shoulders on. So we from the PNC side, we were very happy when we heard that this program was being organized to give opportunity for political parties to come out to tell the people of Ghana what we can do in order to be able to improve our educational system in the country. PNC have been a political party. PNC has been a political party since we went into the 1992 constitutional regime, and we have stayed up till this time. When you look at our educational sector, now, even though there is an improvement in enrollment and other things, we still have problems of infrastructure. We still have our teachers crying that they don't have incentives. We still have our children sitting under trees to learn. These are things that when a PNC government is in power, it will be a thing of the past. We are thinking that when we come into power, 15% of the GDP, our total GDP, is going to be designated into the educational sector to boost our educational system. Apart from this, when they talk about education, people think education means only those who go to the classroom to study. We are extending it to those who are into other sectors, and we want the educational, the universities to be able to inculcate those people into the system.
Thank you very much, Madam Janet Nabil of PNC. We'll also be speaking to Mohammed Sharif Ibrahim. It's all about the free education. What else should we expect?
Well, let me say good afternoon to you, or good evening, and let me join my sister Janet to congratulate, even before the program, the organizers of the program, because the basis of democracy is people making informed choices. And the only way we can make informed choices is by having platforms of this nature where political parties are given an opportunity to speak to their electorates and the general populace on what they intend to do with the mandate when given the opportunity. So from the MPP in particular, I would like to say thank you very much for and on behalf of the MPP, on behalf of my regional executives, and on behalf of the party in general. We're looking forward to our Deputy Minister for Education, Dr. Edichum, to come and make the representation on behalf of the party. And as a party that has been in government for the past 4 years, the expectation is that our Deputy Minister will be speaking on 2 fronts. The first front will be to account for the mandate so far, what we have done with the mandate of the Ghanaian people in the last 4 years. And I'm glad that free SHS comes off head immediately where you were going to talk about this. But we have done free SHS and more because far beyond the free SHS, at all levels of the educational sector, we have a lot of achievement to speak about. For instance, if you look at the area of...
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Sharif of the NPP. Well, the stage is set, we are already here, and in the next few hours, the 4 political parties will have the opportunity to tell Ghanaians what they would give them in the field of education when they come to power. This will give the opportunity to Ghanaians to decide which political party has the best policies when it comes to education and why they should pick that party. Over to you, Gifty.
Martina, thank you very much. Beautiful job done there. Martina Bukri there, certainly trying to squeeze up the time for us as well, and also to engage the people to find out what to expect later tonight. Like she said, the stage is set, and we're going to have that conversation about something crucial, our education. We'll bring you more. You want to stick and stay with us here as we prepare to bring you more later in the evening. You're still watching The Pulse with me, Gifty and Opia. Now, Europe is struggling with the pandemic, and the German government extension of measures aimed at curbing the spread of the virus continues. The lockdown won't be lifted until at least December 20. Let's get more on what's happening there from Berlin. Nicole Fröhlich is with our partners DW. She joins me live now. Nicole, thank you for your time. Now, Germany has a pandemic control roadmap for the rest of 2020. Take us through what it will look like.
Well, there is a roadmap on the table, but it's still pending federal approval. The rest of the year is certainly going to look a whole lot like the past 3 weeks. No restaurants, no bars, no gyms, no theaters, because what has come to be known as lockdown light here in Germany seems to, albeit slowly, be showing effect. Infection rates have started to stabilize, so there's no reason really for state and federal governments to swerve off their current path. But in some aspects, there will be adjustments based on the lessons learned so far. We'll see further contact restrictions, more masks in public and in schools. Universities will be urged to take their classes online as far as that's possible, of course, and citizens are encouraged to self-isolate before visiting their families for the holidays. And in order to make that easier, some states will send kids home for the winter break earlier.
Well, Nicole, let's talk about the Christmas and the other festivities. Now, talk about Christmas, New Year Eve's festivities have all proven to be major bones of contention in the debate about these new measures. How much did leaders give in to societal pressure on this?
Well, the whole coronavirus debate here in Germany has at times, and of course always depending on who you talk to, been very emotionally charged. And with Christmas being the holiday that traditionally brings together most families, many of whom have had a difficult year, that aspect of the debate was further exacerbated. Many populist politicians then jumped on the bandwagon, basically portraying the government as the Grinch trying to steal Christmas. Even the man vying to replace Angela Merkel, he's in the Christian Democratic Party. He wants to become chancellor next year, said the state had no business in telling him how to celebrate Christmas. Of course, Christmas is very important in Western society, but from an epidemiological standpoint, people traveling across the country and gathering in big groups is somewhat of a nightmare scenario. Nonetheless, it looks like there will now be a different, more relaxed set of rules for the time between December 23rd and January 1st, a concession made out of fear of losing popular support for the coronavirus measures, which to this day remains quite high, but also out of fear of alienating potential voters, because we have to bear in mind that Germany is heading towards a general election in 2021. Whether or not that will actually be how things pan out depends entirely on how the situation evolves over the coming weeks. In that sense, the messaging is very clear. We have to cut back as much as possible now if we want to cut back on our Christmas celebrations as little as possible.
At the G20 summit, German Chancellor Angela Merkel was among those pushing for a fair distribution of vaccines once they become available. In practice, what will that entail?
Well, the huge problem here is that we don't know. The summit's final communique was quite vague on the topic, a pledge without concrete details, and no multilateral agreements were actually reached. And that is something Angela Merkel expressed great concern about. She now wants to push the process forward by engaging directly with the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization, one of the organizations behind the COVAX initiative, which is at the helm of international efforts to find an effective vaccine for all countries. And we might be closer to that than ever. Oxford and AstraZeneca have announced promising trial results this week on a vaccine that is being hailed as the most suitable for the developing world, as it's easy to produce, can be stored in a regular fridge, and has a relatively long shelf life. Plus, and this is perhaps the most important factor here, they The companies, Oxford and AstraZeneca, behind it will engage in a permanent non-profit rollout for their vaccine with a maximum price of $3 per dose. The Serum Institute of India says it has already produced 40 million doses of the vaccine, but has been causing quite a bit of confusion by announcing that they would first supply the Indian market before providing vaccines to other countries. And that, of course, goes against the very mission of COVAX and the pledge made by G20 nations, India among them.
Well, perhaps it's because India has a large population and other African countries aren't, you know, if you like, for lack of a better expression, reeling under the effect of the pandemic, perhaps you could say. But it's interesting days ahead, and we hope to unravel it all as we go along. Nicole, thank you very much for these updates from Germany. Nicole Fröhlich is with our partners DW, and as you see here, she joined us all the way from Berlin with details of what the lockdown and the new measures in Germany on coronavirus is looking like. And this is where I say goodbye. Many thanks for staying with us. You're always a great guest. There is more news at myjoyonline.com. My name is Gifty Andorpia. Thank you for your time.